Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be covering an example of a simple concrete beam design covering flexure, shear and deflections. Designing a beam is going to be very similar to designing any concrete section, so it is really important to get to grips with a design. The example question is shown on screen and we are given forces to determine the required reinforcement for this beam section. There are going to be many times in the early stages of a career where you'll be asked to design something where the size has already been predetermined by a senior engineer in their concept stage. Your job is to first analyse the section to get the forces and then to determine the reinforcement. In this example I am assuming the analysis has already been done, so let's first extract the parameters from the question. We are given that the height is 600, the width is 500 and the cover is 30. You can guess for now that the main bars are 20mm diameter and the links are going to be 10mm in diameter. We can now calculate the effective depth, which is the depth to the centre of the main bars. So you can take the full depth minus cover, link and half the main bar diameter. We are provided with the concrete strength, which is C32, a span of 7 meters, the bending moment, which is sagging, hence why we are designing the bottom reinforcement, and also a shear force. We'll assume these forces are already factored. So first we need to calculate the K value, which is simply the moment divided by the effective depth squared times width times concrete strength. I find it easiest to convert the moment into Newton millimeters. In the UK, we need to check that K is less than 0.168 to ensure ductile failure. Our K value is less than this, so we don't need to provide any compression reinforcement. Next, we need to determine the lever arm Z, and this is by effective depth over 2 times by 1 plus the square root of 1 minus 3.5 times the K value you just calculated. The lever arm needs to be less than 0.95 times the effective depth. Once you plug the numbers in, the Z value is 518mm, which is less than 522.5mm, therefore we use 518mm. Now we can calculate the area of steel required, which is simply the moment divided by Z times the design yield stress of the reinforcement. In the UK, the characteristic yield stress of reinforcement is 500, and we divide by a material safety factor of 1.15. giving a design yield stress of 435. Plug the numbers in and we get an area of steel required of 1331mm squared. This is an easy formula to remember if you ever need to quickly work out some reinforcement. So we need to provide the reinforcement with an area greater than what is required. So let's try 5 number 20mm diameter bars, and we have an area of steel provided of 1571, and this is simply 5 times the area of a circle. As a final check, we need to check that we are providing reinforcement greater than the minimum requirements set out in the code, and we call this AS-min. FCTM is the mean value of axial tensile strength of concrete, which is a value that can be found in the code. FYK is a characteristic yield stress of steel, as mentioned earlier, is 500. Plug the numbers in and we get the minimum steel required, which is 429mm squared, which we are providing more than, so it's all okay. If you find this useful, please remember to like and subscribe. Now, moving on to the design for the shear force. First we need to check if shear reinforcement is actually required, so we need to calculate the value of VRDC. If our shear force exceeds this value, then we need to provide shear links. A lot of these values are from the code. You will see the Greek symbol rho come up quite a lot, and it is simply the ratio of reinforcement. In our case, it is the area of steel provided divided by width times effective depth. Plug the values into the equation and you get a VRDC of 139 kilonewtons. Our design shear of 500 kilonewtons is greater than this, therefore we need to provide shear links. Next we need to calculate the maximum amount of shear force this section can take. I also forgot to put references next to equations. This is useful and it's good practice to put references of where you get values or equations from. So to calculate the maximum shear force capacity VRD max, we need the following. Alpha CW is 1 for non-pre-stressed concrete. Z, which is different from flexural design, is 0.9 times effective depth. V1 is strength reduction factor and the design concrete strength, where the concrete material safety factor is 1.5. In the Eurocodes, we can choose what the theta angle is within a range between 22.5 degrees and 45 degrees. A smaller angle will require less reinforcement but reduces the maximum shear capacity of the section, whilst choosing a larger angle will require more reinforcement but will allow you to increase the maximum shear capacity. So if you have a beam that is supporting a large point load where the shear force is going to be higher than a typical UDL, then you might consider choosing an angle of 45 degrees to increase the maximum shear capacity. In this example, we will start with 22.5 degrees to reduce the amount of reinforcement and see if we need to change the theta angle later. We get that cot theta is 2.41 and tan theta is 0.41. Plug the numbers into the main equation and we get that VRD max is 1122 kilonewtons, which is greater than our design shear force. This means that theta value of 22.5 is fine to use. Now it's time to work out the required reinforcement. VRDS is simply the design shear, ASW over S is the area of steel of the links over spacing, and FYWD is the design yield stress of the link, which is the same as the normal steel, which is 435 newtons per millimeter squared. The code gives us an equation to find VRDS, but we need to rearrange the equation to find ASW over spacing, which gives us a value of 0.964. We need to work out the ASW over S provided, so let's try 2 legs of H10 links at 150 mm spacing. So we need to work out the area still, which is simply 2 times area divided by spacing, which is 150. This gives us a value of 1.047, which is greater than required. Therefore, we can use 2 legs of H10 links at 150 spacing. As a note, due to the width of the beam, detailing rules will say that we need links at no more than 150 mm apart, so we actually want to provide 3 or 4 legs of links. This can be done simply by increasing the spacing as we have more legs of links. Now let's move on to the deflection calculation. The code says we can use span to depth ratios to determine if a beam is going to be adequate in deflection, so we are not actually calculating the deflection value, we are simply satisfying some rules given to us by the code. The steps to calculate actual deflection values is very long and tricky in concrete design due to the nature of concrete. You can look it up in the code, but I won't be covering it in this video. I won't say the equations because they are really long, but basically there are 2 equations. If ρ is less than ρ0, then use equation A, otherwise use equation B. K is the structural system factor, and this value changes depending on what arrangement you have. The code will give you these values. For example, a simply supported beam like in this example is 1, but for flat slabs the K value is 1.2. ρ0 is just a constant based on concrete strength. Ρ is the reinforcement ratio based on the area of steel required, not provided. We work out that ρ is less than ρ0, therefore we need to use equation A. Plug the numbers in and we get a span to depth ratio limit of 22.18. Calculate the actual span to depth ratio, which is simply the span divided by effective depth, which is 12.72. This is less than the limit, therefore our beam is fine in deflection. It's good practice to now summarise our beam design below to make it easier for the reader to know what our reinforcement is for this beam without having to flick back through pages. To wrap this video up, I'm checking the results using a design spreadsheet I made. These designs may seem like it takes a long time, but you need to understand the methods and the process of using the code. It won't be long before you start moving on to using design software, so you need to understand what the software is doing by first understanding the basics. Design software is great for generating repeat results of standard designs. When it comes to bespoke scenarios, which you will eventually come across, if you don't understand the basics and know how to use the code, you won't be able to design those special sections or elements. Hopefully you found this video useful. Please remember to like and subscribe, and catch you on the next video. Cheers.